Another crime's been legalized. Do they think they're doing us a favor, morally robbing us blind? Right or wrong, black or white, do you know or care? How does it affect you inside? Your spirit bleeds, but you're unaware. Looking for an alibi to cover up. Some days all the media seems wrong. Sometimes it's alright. I wonder who decides what to feed us. Our daily bread on TV at night. Drugs and drink and prostitution, rugby, racing and blues. They told me what to think and it destroyed me. Yeah, but what about you? Ooh, ah, ooh. Look at all the issues. Say a prayer for me, 'cause I'm no better than you. Who's to blame? Who was it that did this to us? It's a shame. Looking for an alibi to cover up. Hear it on the radio, talking on the telephone, see it on the TV, play it on the MP3. Hear it on the radio, talking on the telephone, see it on the TV, play it on the MP3. Who's to blame? Who was it that did this to us? It's a shame. Looking for an alibi to cover up. Who's to blame? Who was it that did this to us? It's a shame. Looking for an alibi to cover up.
Hey, bro.
Hey, man.
What you doing?
Watching TV?
Anything good on?
Nah.
Cool. So what time did you end up going to sleep last night?
I haven't. I've been up all night.
Really?
Yeah.
Doing what?
Watching TV.
Sweet. What'd you watch?
Infomercials.
Cool. Is there some good ones?
Yeah. Had Thin Lizzy one.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Did they have that Cindy Crawford one?
Oh, yeah. What's she do?
The Cindy Crawford one?
Yeah. We should get rid of that mole, eh?
Yeah.
Ugly.
Yeah.
Oh, and they had the, the Chuck Norris one. You know?
Oh yeah, the Total Gym.
Total Gym, yeah.
We should get one of those, eh? Did you end up getting one of those?
No, I got the Bowflex.
Oh sweet, how's that going for you?
I unwrapped it yesterday.
Sweet, did you feel the burn?
Yeah. I was so inspired, I came back and watched the ad again.
Wicked.
Yeah.
Do they have that magic bullet one?
Oh, yeah, the magic bullet.
Those are cool ways.
Yeah, we should get one of those.
Yeah, we got 3 already, man.
Have we?
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe we should get 4.
Yeah, 2 each.
Sweet.
You know how to use them?
Nah, I think
No.
they might have instructions.
Oh, yeah.
Is there anything for breakfast?
Well, I just finished off the last of the cornflakes. Yeah.
You finished them,
Yeah.
so there's no more?
Nah, no more.
Uh,
I was going to go shopping, but MASH was on again.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, we could go shopping after The Simpsons.
After Simpsons, yeah. But I think it's a, what do you call those? Marathon things.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a 6-hour marathon or something, eh?
No, it's 12.
12?
Yeah.
Oh.
So we could go after that.
Yeah, where?
We go to Pack and Safe. I had, John's down there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He could keep it open for us, eh?
Yeah, even if it's closed, you got to open it up and we can just,
Yeah,
John,
he's probably just asleep in there
just
anyway,
sleeping.
eh?
Yeah. Oh.
Hello? Yeah, speaking.
Who's that?
Yeah, hold on. It's Michael.
Michael.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah, Derek says hi. He says hi. What? Really?
What's the matter?
He's his mum's dead.
Mum's dead.
What's that? Yeah, and dad too.
Dad's dead.
Yeah.
What kind of TV have they got?
I think they had that old black and white one.
Black and white. Oh,
Yeah. What's that? John, Liz, and Bill are dead as well.
John, Liz, and Bill.
Yeah. But I think
What were they
only,
doing?
I don't know, but I think they would used to watch Mum's TV anyway, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah?
What?
Oh, he says,
Fufu?
yeah,
Fufu?
yeah. Fufu's actually, yeah, Fufu's dead.
Fufu's dead?
Yeah, the dog ate her.
Rex is dead too?
Well, yeah, he choked while he was eating her. Yeah, he's crying a little.
What about Bloop?
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 He wants to know about the goldfish. Yeah, Fufu ate Bloop before she got eaten by Rex, and then Rex choked it, yeah.
Oh no! Oh no!
What's that?
Oh no!
I got some...
You've cancelled Coronation Street tonight.
Oh, are you kidding me? Yeah. Yeah. He said our neighbours are dead.
Our neighbours are dead?
Yeah.
Which ones? Left or right?
Which ones? He said the ones with the big flat screen. I think that's...
On the right?
I think that...
Right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got a good TV.
They do. It's
Yeah.
that big, what is it?
The-
LCD, 32 inch.
Yeah, it's a good one. No, I think it's a 49 one.
49 inch.
Yeah, the ones where you hang on the wall.
Yeah.
Or the
Oh, those
roof.
are good. Yeah.
Imagine that, in bed. Yeah.
That'd be nice.
You're going to have to get out of bed.
Yeah. Hey, Michael. Michael? That's weird.
What?
The phone cut off.
Did you pay the bill?
Yeah. Nah, I was actually catching Star Trek reruns. Yeah. Someone's at the door, bro.
Yeah.
I think you should go get it.
I went and got it last time. Plus the ads are on.
Yeah, but I like the ads too.
Well, I like the ads more.
I like the ads the most.
Rock, paper, scissors?
All right. Hello?
Who is
Hey,
it?
it's the Repo Men.
The Repo Man. What
Yeah.
do they do?
I think they repossess stuff. Are you alright?
Did you pay the bill?
For the couch?
Yeah.
Nah.
What are you doing?
TV.
What do we do?
We could just sit on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, check it out.
Yeah.
SpongeBob.
Yeah. Am I a pretty girl? Oh, I love our TV.
I know, it's so pretty.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what I found?
What's that?
If you have a good 8 or 9 hours sitting in front of the TV,
Yeah.
you end up with this really nice bluish white tan. It's great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. What the heck?
You know when you didn't pay the phone bill?
Yeah.
Did you pay the power?
Nah.
What are we going to do?
The neighbours had a TV.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they are. They won't need it anymore.
Exactly.
Cool.
So what's your TV?
Yeah.
We'll lie on the bed, looking out the roof.
Sweet. Hey, I hope they paid their power bill.
Yeah, we're in trouble, eh?
Most of you have seen the things that were presented here tonight and probably haven't thought too much about this, except now and again you'll see something on the media that you know is not true. Sometimes you'll know just because you happen to be in the right place at the right time and you know the information is inaccurate for some reason. Or you know that a particular slant that's been put on the media is kind of a little bit different to what it seemed to be. I remember years ago when I was in the railways and we had this incident right through the country. The Railway Workers Union were going on strike right throughout the whole country. In Christchurch, we had our strike meeting and all the guys were there, 1,400 men in this meeting. And there was a certain group of people going around yelling, "We want to strike! We want to strike!" And right around the country, every centre had voted for the strike. Except in this meeting, there were 4 of us standing on the bench at the back. I happened to be working with one of the leaders of the union at the time. There was 4 of us standing on a bench at the back of the room, and we suddenly realised there were 4 men walking throughout the room yelling out, "We want to strike!" And they'd move somewhere else quickly through the crowd as they could get. "We want to strike!" And then one go over here, move over here, same person, different voice, "We want to strike!" 4 guys were calling for a strike, and 1,400 men were going, "Yeah." Until we talked about it back, what do we do about this? There's 4 guys, and we knew who these 4 guys were. They were what we called Reds. They were communists. So we yelled out to the guys, "Hey guys, this is the commies are calling for the strike." Bang! In that meeting, there was a reversal, a total reversal. We didn't strike. Christchurch was the only centre in New Zealand that didn't strike. The newspaper headlines the next day, they didn't tell any of the story, not the true story. They just said rebels in Christchurch didn't want strike, wanted the money instead. Some heading similar to that. You see, I knew what was reality. And all too often, that's the way things happen in media. I've forgotten my remote control, guys. Can you give me one, please? I don't know where it is. Haven't been well the last few days, so somebody must have the remote. Could somebody give me... can you just have a little look at this page up the top here? I'll get my glasses on so I can see. you can see the little sarcastic sort of comments I've pulled out there in the little cartoon on this first page. This is not true, but you're going to believe it. And if you got to know some of the people in the media world, if you get to know them really well, they'll tell you that often they know the reports they're presenting actually are not based on truth. I have a very good friend who's up in Auckland who's gained a number of awards in New Zealand for his documentary reporting. And this good friend has told me, I travelled once to America with him and so a long time on the plane together. And he talked about this whole media thing and the difficulties that people with integrity struggle with being involved in the media in New Zealand. It's not just New Zealand, it's everywhere in the world. You see, through the media, we get all sorts of things that happen that control and influence us. I always cringe when they put things on our television that maybe sometimes tell the truth, but you wonder about the motive and the intention that's sitting behind the whole thing. What is it that's there? Is there some social engineering going on? Is there some way of controlling society by saying some of the things that they do? How much publicity should you really give to some issues? And how much shouldn't you give? Is it right to give all the truth, or should you retain some of it? Or is it right to not give the truth at all, but to tell the story differently? They're the kinds of questions that come up. So we're looking at this as a whole mind control exercise. So I want to have a quick look at what mind control actually is. Mind control is a general term for a number of controversial theories, proposing that an individual's thinking, behavior, emotions, or decisions can, to a greater or lesser extent, be manipulated at will by outside sources. Now, there's all sorts of theories about this, as this statement suggests. But the reality, most of us believe when we look at the media that we've drawn our own opinions. Let's have a look at a popular crime case a few years ago. Arthur Allen Thomas, the one who's meant to have gone and meant to have killed the couple whose names I can't remember, the Crew family, the husband and wife, and the little baby was left and being fed. An interesting thing arose as a dilemma out of that whole story. There's a lot of people who didn't believe it. There was a lot of people who did. The media bias was very, very strongly in favour in the early days of a guilty Arthur Allen Thomas. But more recently we discover that the information that was put there in the media, one, was sometimes fabricated, and not just fabricated by media, but also by at least one police officer that we know who's since been in trouble for that. And the information that they wanted us to know, we heard about. The stuff they didn't want us to know, we didn't. And you got very little mention of things they didn't want you to know. For example, some of you probably are not aware of the fact that the father of one of the parents of the little baby that was left lived right next door. And people knew that. But midstream through the case, he was allowed to leave New Zealand and to move to a place where he was least likely to be extradited. And there's still suspicion as to who really did kill, because Arthur Allen Thomas has supposedly been cleared, but with the suspicion still hanging over his head. Now, there's truth there somewhere. So what was the truth? One story said that he was guilty, and then later on the media got hold of it and wanted to say he was innocent. Now, I'm not saying that in that case the media controlled it itself. There were other people, not just the media, behind these kinds of things. But most of us believe we've drawn our own opinions on things, and when we haven't. Really. For example, how many people really believe right now that the better thing to eat than butter is what? Margarine. But those of you that have read any journals outside the popular media sources will be very aware that margarine, in actual fact, and it hasn't hit the newspapers at the level it could have, like it did when it was meant to be so good, actually has some really bad side effects for a lot of people. Some terrible things happen. So, have you formed your own opinion? No, you've formed an opinion based on what the media has said. Because you can't go and research that, you're not scientists and all the rest of it. So we are influenced by it. Now, whether they're right or wrong, I'm not concerned about that issue right now. I'm just saying they're the options. That some people would say there's bad things in butter as well. Well, but we don't really form the opinions that we think we do sometimes. The song that was sung earlier, More Truth, Less Violence, one of the video clips, More Truth, Less Violence. That's what I want to see, said the rappist. More truth, less violence. Well, that doesn't sell. That's a predetermining factor of media. It just doesn't sell. Truth does not sell. And so it's a difficult one, except if the truth is some kind of extreme. So I want to ask the question, what is happening? Who's responsible? What about propaganda aspect in terms of people like politicians and scientists and inventors, and business and media? Look, let me say this very carefully and respectfully. Sometimes, in spite of what the bulk of scientists say, the media still present an opposing view. Some of you will be very aware of all of you, no doubt, will be very aware of the popular move right now in terms of global warming. And when this whole thing came up, I got really curious because there were some things they were saying I knew not to be factual. For example, if all the ice melted, we would have, originally some of the figures that were given, huge numbers of meters of increase in sea levels around the world. Well, in actual fact, that's actually not true if you take the total ice cap areas and they melt down, the air goes out of them. You can't just take volume for volume and match one against the other. It doesn't work like that because of the air involved in the whole process. And so I got really curious, so I started checking this out. And to my horror, I discovered what had generated this whole thing was a United Nations report that had been put together originally by a whole lot of scientists. I think there was in excess of 120 scientists involved in the whole story. And then, after they'd had this great meeting and great set of discussions, they came up with this media report, which was put together, listen to this carefully, which was put together by the media side of the United Nations, not by the scientists. And since then, in excess of 60 of those scientists, at the risk of their careers, some of them, have protested at the report that's been given out because it's not been what they said. Now that says something, because some of those scientists have been threatened with losing their jobs. They have publicly said this. You go on the internet, you can find it easy enough. Just type in global warming, you'll get all sorts of stuff. But there is one group of scientists, particularly some Canadian ones, who put it together a full report about this report. And it's very interesting. If you want to look at it, I can give you access to it. So we need to be careful because scientists are said to be the ones that have presented this view. And we'll touch on that a little later. What about the whole issue of motivation? In terms of reporting, fame, fortune, or deception for other motives sit there. All sorts of things sit there. For example, most of us in New Zealand would agree. Our New Zealand government has taken a stance which I think is very healthy in terms of the Iraq war at the moment. That war has been justified based on certain facts that have proven not to be true since. Who proposed the idea? Who gave the idea? Well, the media certainly printed it, but it wasn't the media who generated the ideas. We know that President Bush and many, many others have generated the ideas. I personally, this is my personal thought on it, and I know I'm not alone, I think the agendas that are driving this whole thing, the motivation that's driving it, has to do far more with the control of the world and oil wealth in the world than anything else. And that, therefore, means that any involvement we have in any way is problematic, and that's why our government has protested so violently at the moment against Air New Zealand Air New Zealand flying soldiers from Australia into countries near Iraq to participate in the war. Then the next one, finances and truth. Oh, better get it up there. The truth of the matter is, if it will make money, and we are unlikely to be sued, says the media moguls, if we're unlikely to be sued too much, they don't mind being sued because they like the publicity a little bit, then do it. In other words, people, if we're going to make far more money than we can be sued for, then let's go for it. That's the media moguls' call sometimes. Now, not all the time, and I'm not saying all media people are bad people. They're not. There's a lot of really lovely people out there, but they are not the ones who are in control of the decisions. Many of the people we know are just simply not there. So I want to ask this question. In the light of this stuff, it seems so far away from us. Should we actually be concerned? Should we be concerned? I want to suggest, yes, we should be. Because we can be influenced and manipulated in very destructive or negative ways without our being aware of what is happening. When I was a child, in the school study that we did years and years ago, I'm 54 now, so I know I look a lot younger, but, okay. I remember being taught stuff about China. China had an opium issue, an opium trade that was huge, and China, it was a problem that England was solving, according to the reports. And this is from stuff being written years before I was ever born. The truth of the matter is, and we discovered how extreme the issue was when we were in China several years ago, and people on the train with us, we travelled on this train for 62 and a half hours, people on this train kept walking past us calling us white devils in their language. What they didn't know is that several of our people in our group could understand their language. And they kept spitting at us. And this guy was so good at spitting at us, we called him Mr. Spitty because we didn't know what his real name was. And he'd hoik, and he'd land it right in front of my foot if I was there. He'd managed not to hit my shoe, but he was so accurate, Now, why did they think the way they did? Now, I think eventually they found out that we actually weren't British, that we were actually New Zealanders. And so near the end of the trip, after lots of perseverance of me getting tissues and wiping up the stuff and chucking it in the bin and smiling at him, he started smiling back at us. But why was he reacting like this? I think the reason he was reacting was because he was angry about the real fact that I've since discovered, was that Britain was supplying opium to these people so that they could maintain control of China. That was the idea behind the whole thing. I was horrified. I spoke to a university lecturer from China on the train about it. She was good at English speaker. She wanted to move to New Zealand, in fact. And she talked about this issue. We had been led to believe the opposite to what the truth was. And I was horrified to think I'd been so gullible, and yet I was only a child. You know the old story about the giant in Gulliver's Travels. What was the thing that was so powerful in that story about the giant in Gulliver's Travel? Anybody like to tell me? There's a powerful little story about the giant. He ends up laying flat on his back. He was tied down by what? By little cotton threads, wasn't it? They were so small, they were like little cotton threads to the giant. And he looked at the threads and thought, I can get up from that. Little wee threads. But these little people had tied him down all over the place. They had heaps and heaps of these little threads. And of course the giant couldn't get up. And I sometimes think that that's what happens to us. We don't realize how smaller threads in the media world, in books we read, magazines, television, whatever it is, actually do hold us back. Things that made me aware years ago, apart from the stories I've already told. I was asked to lead a section of a conference that involved 61 missions from all sorts of denominations around New Zealand, that a lot of them do overseas work with people with children, things like that, organisations like World Vision and groups like that. I was asked to set up this conference where we had over 1,000 participants, and I was asked to set up this I-City. We called it I-City. They wanted us to imagine we'd gone forward to the year 2010, and there was an autocratic society that people, the Christian community, had to come and try and communicate, try and reach. So four of us sat down, counting myself, 4 of us sat down, and we were asked to use the main mind moulders of society, health, government, media. I've gone totally blank. Health, government, media. We had 8 of them in any case. Social welfare. I'll probably remember the others later. You know the kind of idea. We sat down and 4 of us schemed this thing. We had around 250 plus people because some extras actually, it was so big an event that other organisations asked if they could bring their people in just for the exercise, they weren't able to attend the whole conference. And each day we had about 250 to 300 odd people come through. And we actually managed to set the whole thing up so that every person that came in, without them being aware of it, apart from one guy who was very, very perceptive, over 1,000 people, about 1,200 people in fact in the end, we managed to construct their lives for the several hours that they were with us in such a way that we could predict what they were going to do and how we could get them to do it. It frightened the wits out of me after I realised what we'd managed to achieve. Because what we did is we sat down and we studied society and said, what are the things that are strong about these areas of society? And so, for example, we weighted the balance of the vote in government where the Christians could outvote our staff if they pulled together. But what we did, we planted 2 plainclothes people each day in amongst the group that came into government. And by the way, they had no choice about where they were put. We gave them a survey, asked them about their lives. They had no idea that the survey was going to be used for the means which we were using it for, apart from one guy who responded by writing on a sheet, "Who do you think you are, the Antichrist or something, the devil," and big dada all over his sheet. And we actually managed to find out who he was the day he came in. We stood at the doorways as they entered, and we gave them the pre-briefing. And Rosella, one of our young women, and myself stood either side of the door. We watched this guy come in, and you could see he was suspicious of something going on, And we tagged him, and we arrested him before he could get into the game. Simulation, it's actually not such a game. But, right when all the Christians were voting together and had it all sorted and could beat us in the government with their vote, because we had 70-odd staff in the team, but our government staff had several votes per person, whereas other ordinary people only had 1 vote per person. Right when they could just vote us right through, one of the dissenting voices that were planted there would say, "No, I think we should vote this way, and I think we should vote this way." And we split the vote down the middle every time. We didn't fail once to split the vote. So they passed laws on euthanasia. They passed laws on all those kind of radical kind of things, abortion, all sorts of things, because we could split the vote. In the health stuff, we made sure the power of the doctors and medical people in charge had real authority. In the police, which we called, what were they called? The Enforce, because they enforced the law. Called them the Enforce. My wife remembers better than me, and I came up with the idea. We gave them such authority that they could literally kill people. Now, we painted their hair blue the first time, and then we gave them a pre-brief, and they could go out again, and then we paint their hair pink the second time, and they stayed in the coffin the second time. We used coffins. with the a choice in entertainment, we told them on a sheet that they had two choices. They could either watch a blue movie or play a game in teams where they killed each other. Only 2 people out of 1,200 odd people chose not to participate in either of those options. Only a handful of people went to the blue movies and tried to pretend they weren't watching them. But you can see the kind of things that can happen. We controlled the whole environment from the time they went in there until the time they left, and they were angry at the end. We had a debriefing room. We used the St. Pat's Catholic College going out the airport there, and there's these lovely theatres with this great big rake floor, much steeper than in here. And we had all the participants each day in there, and we'd have them all seated, and then we'd bring our team dressed, and all the men and women dressed identically with all-seeing eye in their foreheads, identical tops, identical coloured tights. Everybody was dressed the same. And as they walked in, the group the Christian group we'd already seated, as our team walked in, they hissed and booed at them, and they were angry. Now, I want to say that was only an experimental thing to teach people how they need to handle themselves differently to what they normally do in society. If you're in a repressive society, trying to fight it will never work by being obnoxious and angry and physically violent. And by the way, of the 4 days that were running, 2 of the days, they lost control. The Christians did. Some of them did. Physical violence. And it really happened. Now, we did have, by the way, just so you know, we had some actual police officers on our team so that we could actually keep control of things a bit. And I was dressed in plain clothes to try and make sure. That gave me a fright because I suddenly realised how powerful government and society can be if the wrong people get in the wrong places. And of course we've seen that with the likes of Hitler and others in society. Then in the 1970s, the Ice Age predictions. Books have been written. People made millions of dollars out of it. Of course, it never happened. All the things that meant to be happening never happened. But it was a major media thing. It was pushed in the newspapers. There were books written about it. It was on television. The whole works. It was all going to happen. And of course, it never did. And now some of the skeptics say, well, a lot of people made a lot of money out of that and they knew they were going to. Then there was anti-union legislation in New Zealand. This is particularly a New Zealand thing, which is all about the wealthy getting wealthier. It doesn't have anything to do with what it was proposed to have done, is to control the unions from making a mess of our country. It's actually, that's true in one sense, but on the other hand, it actually had to do with the wealthy people getting angry about their wealth being eroded by people wanting more of a fair share. I'm not saying where I stand on that issue particularly. I just think it was problematic. And then the media attitude to Christianity and to other groups as well. But I particularly want to pick up on that one because this is where we are tonight. The number of times that we have been misreported and misreported and misreported. And I've gone to people, and years ago I had a case where it's so bad in misreporting, we'd given a press release, they didn't follow the press release, the guy reworded it, I got him to read it back to me after I'd given the press release, he gave it back to me accurately, he printed it, absolute lies. I threatened to sue them because it was problematic, it caused huge problems in the community we were in at the time. We had a great relationship with the city council, and the lies they told caused unending problems for us. And it put me in a very embarrassing position because one of my key leaders was also the town clerk in the town we were in. And it made him look like an idiot. And I was angry. And so I went in. They eventually apologized after I refused to move from their office. It was that big on the 3rd page. That's how big it was. There was no sincerity in it, really. If they were totally sincere, they would have made a point of making it clear. But it really wasn't, and it wasn't well worded. So I want to say, these are things that made me really aware of it, because I've also been impacted personally as well. So let's have a look at what media actually includes. It's any form of communication from a personal person to another personal person, in whatever shape or form that might mean. It includes television, radio, newspapers, magazines, internet, and that's becoming the powerful one at the moment. national and international reports like the United Nations reports, etc., leaflets, books, business releases, etc., etc. They're the kinds of things that are there. I want to ask this question though. Is the media itself to blame? In today's world, media are vulnerable to manipulation by political authorities and economic forces. So I'm not saying the media are bad boys or girls. Probably more bad boys than girls, but never mind. But I do want to say that some people, some media people are, and I'll cover that a little later. So how does the structure of the media affect its content? Well, there are only a handful of media owners in today's world. So if you've only, going back a few years, there were 50-odd major media owners. Now it's just a little handful of them. I'm not sure of the exact number now, but I know it's dropped significantly. It's just a handful. And one of the writers about this say these top-tier companies are large profit-seeking corporations owned and controlled by very wealthy people. Many of these companies are fully integrated into the financial market, which means that the pressures of stockholders, directors and bankers to focus on the bottom line are powerful. What's it all about? The bottom line is profit. If you're not selling your papers by telling the truth, then you have to sell your papers somehow, and they don't particularly mind how. One of the things the song said, I wonder who decides who feeds us on TV tonight. I wonder who decides who feeds us on TV tonight. I wonder who decides. Good question. In terms of is the media to blame? Media power is political power. What's happened here? Did I just push the wrong button, guys? Sorry, I did too. Media power is political power. According to totalitarian doctrine, the media's function is to guide the masses. It's not just totalitarians who believe it, and communists really held this one high. It's actually always been, they were at least truthful about it. I think our Western society is not so truthful about it. It's certainly the truth about it. The sheer number of media voices is not a reliable indicator of a society's level of access to the truth. I've missed out the word truth there. You see, the fact that every newspaper reports it doesn't mean to say it's true. They actually source most of the information from the same sources. And that's one of the things we need to watch out for. Why do the media rely on government and business experts for information? Have you ever heard the experts say, says the reporter on television, the experts say this, da-da-da-da-da-da. The experts say da-da-da-da-da. Nobody asks the question, who are the experts? Or if they do get someone, it always amazes me. In New Zealand, the classic one is, the experts on Christianity actually are guys, if you knew them, which I know who they are not the experts on Christianity in New Zealand. They are people who are considered very fringe in terms of Christianity, who are reported. Very rarely is there somebody who's at the center of the information that is being reported. There are people with a particular bent and opinion that most Christians would violently disagree with. And so one needs to be very careful. So why do the media rely on government and business experts or other experts for information? Well, there are two key things. The first one is what you'd call organisational dependency. Let me explain what that means. Government and large corporate businesses have resources to communicate what they want others to believe. In other words, governments have this huge media, the press side of their government is bigger sometimes in some countries than the actual media themselves in terms of the numbers of people involved in communicating what they want communicated. The second aspect is they have the power to isolate media that raise issues with their views. So what actually happens, the government is so powerful that if the media start creating problems for them, they have the ability to create problems for the media and to drop their sales by not giving them the information that they need. They won't allow, for example, certain reporters from certain magazines are not allowed into press releases. Why? It's because in the past they gave bad reports. They challenged what was being presented. Now, I can understand why they might feel that, but that doesn't go well for good democratic process in our country, does it? Really. So there's organisational dependency. In other words, the media is dependent on those organisations to survive with their information that they need. So why do the media rely on government and business experts for information? The second aspect of it is economic dependency, which I've sort of touched on in a way. But economic dependency allows corporations and the state to influence the media. The most obvious way is by using their personal relationships, threats and rewards to further influence and coerce the media. The media may feel obligated to carry extreme dubious stories and mute criticism in order not to offend sources and disturb a close relationship. It is very difficult to call authorities on whom one depends for daily news liars, even if they tell whoppers of lies. Because you'll get cut out financially, you'll be bankrupt pretty quickly if you don't conform to some degree or another. So the truth of the matter is, there's some things that happen. One of the writers about this whole thing wrote a book, which is a very interesting book. Trust Us, We're Experts, the book's called. And it's written by John Strawberry and Sheldon Rampton, I think is his name. I can't read it up there very well. Rampton. Metro Media interviewed John Strawberry. And I asked this question: what was the most surprising or disturbing manipulation of public opinion you reveal in your book? I asked. And this was the response of John Strawberry. The most disturbing aspect is not a particular example, but rather the fact that the news media regularly fails to investigate so-called independent experts associated with industry front groups. They all have friendly-sounding names like Consumer Alert and the Advancement of Sound Science Coalition, but they fail to reveal their corporate funding and their propaganda agenda, which is to smear legitimate health and community safety concerns as junk science fear-mongering. The news media frequently uses the term junk science to smear environmental health advocates. The public relations industry has spent more than a decade and many millions of dollars funding and creating industry front groups which wrap them in the flag of sound science. In reality, their sound science is progress as defined by the tobacco industry, the drug industry, the chemical industry, the genetic engineering industry, the petroleum industry, the nuclear industry, and so on and so on and so on. Because the people who fund these organisations actually help to set them up so that they could actually bring reports in favour of them. Now, I can understand them doing that. I think any industry wants to believe that what they're doing is right. And I think often those people aren't being totally dishonest. They often believe what they're saying, but that doesn't make it right. So I want to finish off with the last few slides. Why do the government and business experts behave like this? Oh, I've hit the wrong button again. It's about power, profit, and control. Sorry, the L disappeared there. The dominance of official sources would, of course, be weakened by the existence of highly respectable and unofficial sources that gave opposing views without great authority. You see, the fact of the matter is, if they accepted the views of people who oppose what they say, and there's quite a big percentage of people who oppose the ideas, then at that point it affects their profit and power. And we need to recognise that. We need to be careful about where we spend our money consequently. Can I say this? I don't know where this magazine's still about. The Sunday Truth. Is it still about? Anybody know? I think it was up north, but I'm not sure whether it was down here. Years ago, it used to come out, and there was somebody I knew used to buy it, and I used to look at this thing regularly. Unfortunately, it had some bad aspects to it as well, but it was an intriguing one, because these stories the Sunday Truth used to talk about, it was an anachronism to call it truth. It just wasn't true. Often, some of the things they said were ludicrous. So in terms of solving the media problem, let's have a quick look at that. If you want to solve the media problem, you're not going to do it by telling the media they're wrong. You're not going to do it. They're too big and too powerful for that. You can do the likes of what Martin Luther King did and prove that they're wrong. That's a very different thing altogether. But I doubt whether most of us have that ability in this room, and if you do, you better put your hand up and give us all a hand here. The fact of the matter is that what we need to do, we need to take their power away from them very slowly but surely. Everything they print, we should question. Question everything. There's nothing wrong with questioning things. One of the fears, I think, that's been generated in society, if you question things, then you're an oddball, you're an outcast, you're a reject, or whatever. Well, let's be the oddballs that are going to kick them around. I think we need to question everything. Don't accept all you hear from people you don't know. Don't accept all you hear from people you don't know. The second thing is, learn to be media literate. I missed out the word be there, sorry. A media literate person doesn't know all the answers, but knows how to ask the right questions. A media literate person doesn't know all the answers, but knows how to ask the right questions. I believe very clearly, and one of the reasons I'm here as a Christian, is that God designed us to discern truth. The scripture says it like this: when the Spirit of truth comes, He will guide you into all truth. He doesn't mean partial truth. He literally means that. And I think there's some deal in here. And I think Christians need to be very aware of this. And if you're not yet a follower of Christ, then you know the opportunity comes for all of us to be able to do that. But the truth of the matter is, God doesn't like it. In fact, God says like this: the Lord detests lying lips, but He delights in men and women who are truthful. Amen? I think that's a thing we need to be aware of. One of the things the media people do, they play an interesting game. Not the newspaper people, the people who are in the background of the media. They create this stuff called flack. F-L-A-K. And flack is, in terms of definition, is negative statements to a media program or statement that's already been made. What they do is they present the statement, and then when they see it's going all wrong, the same organisation, without people realising what's happening, present an opposing view to create this flack, so that they can then in turn control how society thinks. So if they make a real bungle at some point, they can rescue themselves through the stuff that's called flack. It's a very clever mechanism in society, and we need to be aware of that. So that it's used for propaganda means and purposes. This is common in war, and I think it was out of the Second World War this became a very popular thing. How many people know the story that who was the flying ace that Winston Churchill talked about in the media? Anybody know? Sorry, who was it? I can't think of his name, and I couldn't think of it today. He was a cartoon character. No, it was. I know who it is, and I can't think of the name. In any case, what happened? The Germans presented this picture that they were the victorious flyers in the air, and they're doing incredibly well during the war in terms of their ability to fight in the air. But Winston Churchill and his guys made this story up about this guy who was actually a British cartoon character, whose name is still eluding me. It'll come later. It's been one of those days today. And what they did, they talked about the victories he had and all these aircraft he was knocking down, and this incredible fabricated story, to the point where the Germans actually put this huge force to try and locate this guy and to get rid of him. And so they expend a huge amount of energy trying to get rid of this fictitious character who didn't exist. Now, what was actually happening? The British were losing the air fight, but that was one of the things that is attributed to actually turning the war around. Crazy. Sounds crazy, but that's one of those war stories that came out. And there was lots of propaganda type things that went on during the war. In New Zealand, the famous one I know about, because I happen to work for the railways, some of the older men used to joke about the Second World War because the government made a tank. It was made with metal that was so thin it wasn't funny, and you could literally probably throw a bullet through it, let alone shoot a bullet through it. And they took it right around the country and showed it off. There we go. So I just want to talk about, just finish with this. In terms of developing media literacy, what do we do? We have to ask this question: who created this message? Why was this message created? How and why did they choose what to include and what to leave out? How is it intended to influence me? If we ask these questions, it's going to help us make good, clear decisions. And then the last sheet I want to cover. The questions go: is it morally good? And that includes computer games. You know, one of the horrible computer games that came out not long ago was one where kids play and they get points by running over people. Do you allow your kids to play that? Tell you what, they might think they get points when they get older by doing the same thing. Sounds ludicrous, but that's what happens. And where can I find out more about this particular subject? There's ways of finding out information. If you're really sincere about really understanding who you are and how you should live, I think you've got to work on some of those issues. Not everybody can, I understand that, and I'm not going to leave people with guilt or whatever. But I want you to know that you don't need to be bound by the media. You can live with freedom and enjoy life a hell of a lot more. You don't need to live with fear that the world's about to end, or this is about to happen, or some catastrophe's happening, or this, whatever it happens to be, oil's going to run out soon. Ha, ha, ha. If you knew enough information, you know that's ludicrous. It's not going to run out soon. They've got a massive oil field on the edge of America that's so huge that they actually are trying to determine how big it is still. So there's all sorts of issues, and no doubt the oil will run out one day, but is it going to be a crisis? No. God didn't leave us on this earth in a way for us to have to live with that kind of crisis. We need to have confidence in Him. So let's talk to Him as we finish. Father God, we want to come to you tonight. For some of us, we have been, probably most of us have been deceived at some point or other through things we've read. Sometimes it's even been through things that people have written against you and your purposes, and sometimes it's just been about social things in life. And Father God, help us to understand your wisdom and your knowledge, to be able to live a life of freedom and not be controlled by others that would like to take our money and control our lives to their own benefit and gain. Help us to be people that are going to live with a freedom that means we can walk down the street and rejoice, that the headlines in the newspaper won't be controlling our lives in any way, that we'll know what it is to know your peace and your grace in Jesus' name. And they all said,